J. Christian Adams is a former Justice Department attorney and legal editor of PJ Media. Chris, good to see you. And so explain what it is, because what happened here was there was an email from Lois Lerner, April 9th, 2013, to a woman named Maria Hook, who's an IT person at the IRS. And Lois seems very concerned to find out whether the IRS's instant messaging, you know, like the top line sort of communications you can have internally, are discoverable. Explain.
Well, the IRS apparently has this special program that lets officials talk to each other without creating a record. And so Lois Lerner was asking the tech people, will anybody be able to find these messages that I have been sending using this system? And there's an amazing moment, Megan, when the tech person says, no, they're gone forever. And Lois Lerner's one-word answer is perfect. Perfect.
Right.
Yeah, there's no way to find these records of Lois Lerner talking with other IRS officials on this instant messaging system about how to target Tea Party groups. So the records have just vanished. The hard drives have just vanished. It gets more absurd by the day, this IRS abuse scandal.
This happens at the same time that one of the targeted parties, True the Vote, is demanding that an outside third-party forensic examiner be allowed to take a look at the computers at the IRS and assure the court hearing these lawsuits that what the IRS is representing about nothing being retrievable is true. Now, you would think if the IRS was in a position of actually telling the truth, they would say, bring them in, Judge. Fine. That'll put this to bed once and for all. And instead, Chris, they are objecting, saying, no one gets to come in.
Yeah, no surprise the IRS isn't very forthcoming in court either. Look, Megan, this is the government agency that makes every American keeps her tax returns for 7 years. It's the government agency that makes small business owners keep every doggone receipt they have, or else they're going to be audited and fined and maybe even go to jail. And this is the same government agency that apparently doesn't keep their own records. She doesn't want people to know what was on those instant messages for a reason. Most Americans have enough common sense to know what that reason is. This is an agency that was so abusive, it chilled political speech during the 2012 election. It chilled Tea Party groups from fully engaging the issues.
But don't worry, because your former boss, Eric Holder, is on top of it. And as you heard in that testimony today, he's so on top of it that he hasn't even bothered through DOJ or FBI to talk to the current tax agency chief, Koskinen.
That might be the most amazing revelation today, that the IRS has not even been contacted by Justice Department investigators about this cover-up, about these emails, about this instant messaging sham going on. That speaks volumes. It tells you that Eric Holder doesn't have any intention of doing anything about this, because this administration hated political speech by right-wing groups, by conservative groups, by Tea Party groups, and they set out to stop it, and they succeeded.
As of right now, it appears that the government is refusing to budge on the issue of investigating these hard drives and where that information ultimately went, or even allow an independent examinationer to come in and look at Lois Lerner's computer system, try to figure out what they can get out of there. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel reports tonight from Washington. Hi, Mike.
Well, Martha, good evening. There will be significant pressure on the IRS this week, both on Capitol Hill and in the federal courts, as leaders and groups seek answers. Late today, I spoke to a member of Congress who suggested upcoming hearings should feature IRS and Justice Department officials answering questions side by side.
The biggest part of this is what involvement did the Department of Justice have as well. You know, you've got the IRS, you've got interactions back and forth with the Department of Justice. And so having both of them together would be a real critical thing, so one can not say, well, we didn't know.
I think she's in this position because she isn't the typical green-visored, mechanical pencil cracking, numbers crunching kind of gal. She has a history of trying to get Republicans out of office, and that's why she's in that job.
The FBI has not talked to you about the lost emails of Lois Lerner.
They have not.
Has anyone at the Justice Department talked with you or anyone at the Internal Revenue Service about Lois Lerner's lost emails?
I don't know.
Here's the takeaway. Lois Lerner is trying to cover her tracks. And this guy tells us he hasn't even talked to the FBI. What kind of investigation is going on where the FBI won't even talk to the head of the agency that has this kind of stuff going on with their email exchange, and won't talk to the agency that lost key evidence in an investigation that's about people's First Amendment rights being targeted? And we get these flippant answers from the commissioner. That's what just bothers. That's what bothers every single American.
The Department of Justice's investigation of this has been
woefully negligent. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, has put in charge of the investigation a major Obama donor who gave President Obama and the Democrats over $6,000. And just a couple of weeks ago, I publicly called on the Attorney General Eric Holder to appoint a special prosecutor with meaningful independence to investigate the abuse of power.
Right.
And if the Attorney General doesn't do that, in my view, the House of Representatives should begin impeachment proceedings against the Attorney General. We cannot have the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States openly mocking and disregarding the law.
For the past, I don't know how many months now, we've been talking about smoking guns on this show. There are officially now more smoking guns here than at the Battle of Gettysburg. And still, it's not enough to qualify as a scandal. If Louis Lerner shot a Tea Partier, the media would go, is that lead biodegradable? And then they would move on. It's amazing. Corruption is perfectly okay if it's directed against a conservative and it matches the assumptions of the media.
Thousands of IRS emails are MIA, but a House committee has found one interesting one from the central figure in its investigation. It's from Lois Lerner. Remember her? She was warning her colleagues last year to be careful about what they put in emails. Lerner wrote, quote, "We have had several occasions where Congress has asked for emails, and there has been an electronic search for responsive emails, so we need to be cautious about what we say in emails." So while she pleads the fifth and the media pretends the right is crazy to think there was a calculated effort to abuse the rights of conservative citizens, we are slowly getting a better understanding of what Lerner was up to.
Congressman Steve Stockman is now calling on Congress to arrest Ms. Lerner. He's arguing that the Obama administration will not prosecute her, so it's up to Congress to act.
So now that the government has responded to these groups that are seeking some kind of justification in all this in the courts, the ball is now in the judge's court. Could and should the judge order the IRS to hand this information over or to let some computer experts in there to see if they can get their hands on it? Judge Andrew Napolitano is a Fox News senior judicial analyst, and he joins me now. Judge, welcome. Good evening to you.
Good to be with you, Martha.
So we just heard a little while ago from Cleta Mitchell, who's the attorney for True the Vote, and they had asked the IRS, let's bring in some outside investigators to look through your hard drives and figure out what's in there. And they basically came back with a resounding, look, there's nothing here. There's no evidence. There's nothing to dig into, and basically back off.
Well, the IRS lawyers are really making an argument that's basically sophistry. It's just a circular argument. And they're basically saying that because these things don't exist, there is no evidence for us to give you. And because the crash of Mrs. Lerner's hard drive happened before you sued us, there is nothing in that crash that could conceivably affect this lawsuit. You know what? They're saying it to the wrong judge, and they're saying it in the wrong forum.
Why?
Well, this judge, Reggie Walton, is a very, very strong-willed guy who's nobody's pushover. He's certainly not the government's pushover. If he suspects that a litigant before him is playing fast and loose with the rules in order to prevent their adversary from seeing what they have a right to see, he's going to come down on them very hard. It's really the beauty of our system. The IRS has stonewalled the Congress to the frustration of 2/3 of the nation. The Congress can't get to first base on this. But here you have a private litigant, True the Vote, and they have the IRS, the great grand inquisitor IRS, with their back to the wall. And they are within inches of getting what the Congress can't get, which is an outside independent investigation of Mrs. Lerner's hard drive.
Yeah, you're so right. And when you think about the fact that Lois Lerner said, look, I called the IT department. I really wanted to find out if I could get back the information that was lost there. Well, if she really wanted to get back that information, why wouldn't they welcome an outside investigator to say, come on in, get a look in the hard drive, because there's nothing there. She told us in front of Congress, there's nothing there. I did nothing wrong. Well, they are stonewalling to the point where, as you say, this had to be pushed into the court system to get anywhere, and finally maybe True the Vote's going to get some kind of answers here.
I have a feeling, look, I can't predict what he's going to do. I'm certainly not going to suggest what I think he should do. He's a terrific and superb federal judge who calls things as he sees them. But I have a feeling that some light is going to come out of this. If he's going to demand, he's going to insist that the IRS do something, which the Congress is powerless to do. And I'm not blaming the Congress. They just don't have the tools.
Which it's illegal for them not to do as well, correct?
Correct.
If they destroyed this evidence, that's one thing.
Well,
if they didn't save the evidence, they're guilty of breaking the law, correct?
Correct. But for them to say there can be no evidence in this case because the hard drive crashed before the case started is not an argument that will resonate well with this judge. For them to say, we won't help you find what was on there because we don't even want an outside person to look at this hard drive, just belies common sense. Look, 16-year-olds that know more about computers than you and I do, certainly more than I do not believe Mrs. Lerner's excuses and the excuses of the IRS.
If there's nothing to hide, I say again, if there's nothing to hide, open the doors. Say, come on in. We have no problem with you looking at everything that is in here. John Koskinen, this poor guy, sat before Congress and said, oh, we're going to produce all the emails for you. I'm going to be back here and we're going to produce them. Now he's forced into a situation of saying, oh, actually, she never did print them out. Somebody told me she printed them out, but apparently she didn't.
Well, now he's getting very, very close to misleading Congress. Remember, there's two potential crimes here. One is an outright lie under oath, and one is sort of a below-the-radar screen lie where you say things to mislead. That's what Roger Clemens was tried for, ironically, before Judge Reggie Walton, who threw the case out because he was so upset with the government's shenanigans. And then eventually Clemens was retried and found not guilty. But the IRS is in a position they don't want to be in right now before this judge. Fireworks on Friday.
Now a second judge is ordering the IRS to talk under oath. Explain the missing emails.
That's right, Harris. Today's hearing was before U.S. District Court Judge Reggie Walton, responding to a motion from True the Vote. It is seeking to speed up discovery and preserve and prevent further destruction of IRS emails. Judge Walton ruled today that the IRS must provide the qualifications and credentials of the Treasury Department investigators who are conducting the forensic examination of Lois Lerner's hard drive and IRS servers. He wants a timeline for the Treasury Inspector General's investigation, and he wants to know what happened to this hard drive. You'll recall that IRS Commissioner John Koskinen said it was recycled, but Judge Walton said that all government property has a serial number. He believes there has to be a record where it is.
Questions mount about the woman leading the Justice Department and FBI's investigation into this matter. Not only did she donate to the Obama campaign, I'm sure there's no conflict of interest there, but it turns out that neither Barbara Bosserman nor her team members have even bothered to speak to the IRS chief while conducting the DOJ's so-called investigation. Andrew McCarthy is a former federal prosecutor, now a National Review contributing editor. This was unearthed in a hearing yesterday and had Jim Jordan utterly confused how it could be that they're not even bothering to talk to the IRS chief right now about their investigation. Which leads them to wonder whether there is an investigation.
Right. Well, we've heard all along that they're not talking to the witnesses either. I think they were shamed into speaking to at least some of them, but I know Cleta Mitchell still complains that many of the people she's representing haven't been spoken to.
It feels like a sham.
Well, it feels like a sham. It looks like a sham. The rules are designed to make sure it doesn't look like a sham. They're supposed to avoid the appearance of impropriety, even the appearance, not just impropriety, the appearance of it in the administration of justice. And frankly, if they were trying to do the president a solid and trying to do Eric Holder a solid and everyone else in the administration, they ought to get somebody who could at least be sold to the public as reasonably independent and someone who had integrity.
Let me ask you quickly for your take on what we heard today from a judge on whether the IRS is going to have to prove that it can't produce Lois Lerner's communications.
Well, I think that kind of a litigation is the only way that we're ever actually going to get to the bottom of this until you have a different Justice Department than the one that we have now. So I applaud the judge for what he did today.
He wants them to say under oath what exactly they did to recover them.
Right, and I expect that they will have to file affidavits under oath. Now, it'll be very interesting to see what they say, but I think a judge actually can coerce them into doing things that they don't want in a way that Congress can't.
Okay, so now on that point, many people have said, look, this is reaching critical mass. You cannot trust the IRS. You cannot trust the people investigating the IRS. What we need is a special prosecutor who we can trust. You say, no, we don't.
I'm stunned, Megyn, that they haven't appointed a special prosecutor yet.
The Obama administration?
Yes. Because,
why?
Well, because what would happen is they would appoint a reliable lawyer. Listen, anyone who's stuck with Bosserman as long as they have is not going to appoint, pick your lawyer with probity, right?
Right.
They will appoint somebody who is, reasonably controllable. There is no independent counsel. In our system, a counsel would have to report to the Attorney General and the President.
Right.
No other way.
Otherwise, it's a violation of the Constitution.
Correct. So what would happen is you appoint a special counsel. then all the witnesses say, gee, you know, we can't, on advice of counsel, cooperate with Congress and supply them with documents. This is now a serious criminal investigation, and we're going to cooperate with the investigation.
So everyone clams up.
Right. The administration, the special counsel then extends the investigation for a length of time. There's no stories about it, so the thing goes dark. We can't even keep up with the scandals as they roll out now, but this will be a situation where you would have no drip, drip, drip of information anymore.
And so what would be the solution in your view? If we can't trust the investigator,
right.
if we shouldn't have a special prosecutor, just leave it in the hands of Congress?
Well, I shouldn't have said before that Congress can't coerce them. Congress has ways of coercing them. They can impeach the subordinate executive officials who are found to have committed misconduct. That's very different from impeaching President Obama, right? Because we're talking
Less
about
politically risky.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And
Get rid of the
on
minions.
the IRS, I mean, you know, they should say let the Democrats, if they want to defend the IRS, fine, and cut their money. Those are two things they could actually do. The judge can actually get them to to put out information.
So you like the track it's pursuing on right now?
Well, special counsel,
through Congress and the courts,
yeah,
not so much through Barbara.
No, because I think at the end, what happens is President Obama just pardons everyone on the way out the door.